We were talking about with football, that football would be safer if there was no helmets. It doesn't make sense.
And drugs would be safer if they were
would all
regulated.
be safer if they were legal.
I feel that way about prostitution.
Yeah.
And I'm going to actually broach this here. I was going to write a joke about it. I'm just going to say it. I believe a state issued, if you apply for funding, for support, if you're going to school, like a loan, or the state's paying for you to go to school, you get a scholarship, you should also be able to apply for a state issued prostitute. If you are a little socially awkward, maybe you haven't had sex, because men get weird if they haven't been made privy to the way a woman is, or they haven't had sex and you're going to college. Let's get you a prostitute. Let's get you having sex twice a week so you're not afraid of women. Let's get you a little less weird. Let's fund a prostitute.
Well, I think if it didn't have the social stigma behind it, there's a lot of people that would choose it over working at Wendy's.
Great.
There's a lot of people that choose it. But we have an issue.
Choice.
The social stigma is that there's something wrong with it, right?
But that's because it's a woman saying, I want to do this with my body. That's what's upsetting.
It's sort of that, but it's also, well, in this country, it's also connected to sex slavery. We think of it as like if someone is doing that, then maybe they're a sex slave. Like maybe there's someone who's...
I think that's less on people's radars, and it more has to do with the puritanical idea of
There's a little
shaming.
bit of that, but I mean, that was one of the things that they were accusing Robert Kraft of. You remember Robert Kraft, who's the guy who owns the Kraft or Kraft? It's Kraft, right? He's the guy who owned the New England Patriots. He went to a massage parlor and they gave him a happy ending, and then the next thing you know, they arrested him and told him that there's a video of it.
Right.
And they were, they're trying to get him to plead guilty and all this different shit that was going on to a guy who's like insanely wealthy, who just was going there to get jerked off. But one of the things they said was that it was that he was participating somehow in sex trafficking, and so they were accusing him of that. That was a big part of what the police were saying. Well, it turned out that none of the girls that worked there were sex traffickers. They're just prostitutes. And the woman that did it to him, she was like 40 years old.
But none of this would have happened if it was legal.
None of it would have happened if it was
regulated,
legal. But
and
it's
okay.
also they were using that term. They were accusing him of this thing and using that term like to brand him.
Wait,
this
are you
way,
telling me that
to shame him?
there was a news story where they used a buzzword?
Yes. Yeah, it is a buzzword.
Right.
But it's a buzzword it's very specific in terms of like the difference in the consequences that you would want someone to face, whether they just went there to get jerked off or they participated in sex slavery.
Right, you're not a part of a ring. I mean, you are, because the ring ends with you. So because there's a demand for it, there is a supply. So that is by and large a part of the issue. And I say this not knowing a ton about sex slavery, but I do know that if you take away the stigma, and you can normalize things very quickly. Weed is a great example, right?
Yeah.
You could do that. And even we've done this with women and bodies and the way that we look at people who are overweight and we look at people with different things. Like we are getting to a place where it's less of a thing. I think you could do that with prostitution.
I think so too.
And it's fine. And look at it as like this is her choice. And if there wasn't an exceptional, exorbitant demand for it, it wouldn't be a thing.